Welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Today we have Minetek back on the show. We have Benjamin Fletcher, Regional Sales Manager at Minetek. Benjamin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it. It's good to be on.
Can you give us a little bit of scope on we're going to focus a lot on the air side. Can you kind of give us a picture of just the company's delivery in that segment?
Yep. So in the air side of things, I mean, we do secondary ventilation and primary ventilation in underground mining. That's our scope. That's our bread and butter. It all gold mines, everything essentially outside coal we'll do with underground ventilation.
So are you, let's just dig into it right off the bat. Are you doing right from design to install to where does it sort of start and stop with Minetek on the air side?
Yeah, so we can do complete bespoke products. So I guess how it all starts is we'll get engaged from a site to come up with a solution for their site. So they'll come to us and say, look, we need X amount of cubes at X amount, and we've got this much pressure. Can you come up with a design for that? So that might be a secondary fan, that might be a primary vent solution, might be a booster fan. So yeah, we'll sit down with our engineers and come up with the best possible solution for them. And then, yeah, of course, we can go all the way through the process and do a full turnkey package for them and do a full install as well. So we've got a crew that, yeah, I guess we can do it from start to finish. That's the Minetek offer, is we can control the process from start to finish.
What is the main selling point on their fans or the ventilation systems? I know those are intertwined, but maybe we can talk about both. Can you divide out, maybe just walk through on the air and ventilation side, of course, what are the main values? So when you're talking to a client and these are like, if there's three things that they absolutely have to know, what are those things that they should be focusing on?
Straight off the bat would be that it's an Australian made product, and that carries so much weight, especially in Australia and around the world. People trust Australian products. So that would be one of the first things that I'll make sure I mention, that everything is manufactured in Prestons in New South Wales. We'll build everything in our manufacturing facility and then send it out to the site. So the quality assurance is all done in Australia. All the testing, make sure that the fan's up to spec, will be done in New South Wales, and then we'll send it over wherever it is in the world. So that does carry a lot of weight. The second thing, and probably the most important thing that sets us apart, is our pod. So our pod is a set of inlet guide vanes that sit on the back of our fans, and that controls the airflow coming through the fan. Now, this is what's going to give you the complete control over your flow and pressures. So this is the comparative product in this is a VSD, so a variable speed drive. Now, these can be a bit temperamental on site. They don't like dust, which is hard to mitigate in.
If you've ever been in a mine.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna cause you grief, and they're not cheap at the end of the day, and you have to bury them, and they get hot, and it's a complete thing. So we came up with a solution where you don't need a VSD to control your fan. So to break it down, our impeller is running at a constant RPM.
Okay.
Regardless of what flow, what pressure it is, our motor is running at a constant RPM. Now, our pod sits on the inlet side of the fan, and it controls the amount of airflow that's hitting those impeller. So that's where your power usage is going to come. So if the pod is completely closed, you're not getting as much flow out the other side, depending on your pressures, but you're also using next to no energy, next to no power. Once you start opening up that inlet guide vane and loading your impeller more, maybe for some higher pressures or for some increased flow, you're going to be using a bit more power, but you're still only using the amount of power that you need, and then you're getting the cubes that you require at the end of it.
Let's talk about our heavy industry tour brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide, and Geograph, solving customer challenges through innovation and design, higher performing parts, engineered solutions, on time spare parts supply, and high quality repairs. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. Does your mine plan keep up with changes on site? When it comes to managing a mine, you never know what's around the corner. When conditions change and you need answers yesterday, don't get held back by your scheduling software. With Micromine Elastri, you can explore a broader range of scenarios, rapidly test options, and slash your waiting times. Account for more in your mine plan and be ready with the right answers when questions arise. It's time your software matched the pace of your site's demands. Visit micromine.com/Elastri to learn more. LiveMine is the data management solution for the digital mine, making mining operations paperless through an intuitive and easy-to-use app developed by mining professionals with decades of real-world experience, trusted by operators in 7 countries across the globe. Get better and more accurate data faster than ever and throw away your paper plods, PDF printouts, and shift sheets. Visit livemine.com.au to learn more. Did you know cementitious binders can be responsible for up to 70% of the total GHG footprint of mine backfilling processes? Now you can replace up to 50% of the binder in your mine backfill operations with Graybond, Graymond's new low-carbon cementitious binder. This lime-based alternative binder maintains a 40 to 70% lower GHG footprint compared to typical cement and can adapt to varying mine conditions without compromising performance. Learn more about Graybond at graybond.com.
Is that making sense to you, Jared?
Yes, it does actually. But I was wondering, so where is the application of this? Is this is for an underground mine, and it's controlling how much air is. I know this is a very. I'll give myself away that I'm not an expert in underground mining
This was me
but
9 months ago, so it's fine.
yeah, yeah. So where would be the reason where it needs to change the amount of air flowing through that? Is it depending on where people are located, or like how as the mine gets sunk deeper, or what are the applications here?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So from a secondary market, we can probably touch on that now. So for a secondary application, usually with a secondary fan, you turn it on or you turn it off, and you might have some ducting on the end of it. So you turn off a standard fan, the ducting will deflate, and then you got a whole issue trying to get that back up without those bags ripping, any bag whip or anything like that. So with our fan, if you don't need those bags pushing lots of airflow, you can just close off those pods. Now, that might give you enough airflow to keep those ducts inflated. On top of that as well, you can use a complete vent on demand system. So you can open and close the pod depending on what trucks, what loaders are going through those areas. Again, never seen before in the secondary market. Currently, you turn a secondary fan on, you turn it off. That's kind of what you've had in the mining industry. Now
Yeah.
you can just open and close those pods for whatever you require for that secondary. So talking about a decline fan, you're just starting to cut the decline and you starting to go down. So you might need 42 cubes at the face, but you've only got 100 meters to push. You don't want to use 110, 220 kilowatts of power instantly. It's going to be too much. You might
Right.
only have 300 pascals. So you don't need much. The pressure is going to be really low. So essentially, coming back to the pod, you close the pod right off. So you're only getting 42 cubes, but it's only at 300 pressure.
Mm.
So then you can just, as the further that you go, I don't know, guys might be going 3 meters a day. You just can start slowly opening up that pod the further that you go down the mine.
And so is this manually controlled still though? Or is someone making the choice, or is there some sort of sensor that's attached to make sure that air pressure or air supply ends up right, or how is that set up?
Yeah, so engineers on site will know what their requirements are, and looking at their
Yeah.
sim models, that they'll know what their pressures are going to be. So our fans are linked up back to our starters. So this kind of comes back to our power division. So we
Mm.
complement each other really well. power division started as we're doing our own starter panels anyway. So why not create a division where we can sell these same starters to other people in the market? So all the fans are linked back up to the starters. So you can control the pod from your starter panel, and you can honestly have a dimmer switch on there where you can just twist it and it opens up the pod further.
Right. So this is, and I just want to go back. So this is the pod is providing the actual air, but the speed of the fan never changes.
That's
right.
right. That's right.
So you end up with just more air getting pushed through, but all at the same speed, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, because you're choking off the supply. So once you choke off the supply, there's not much air hitting the impeller, which is giving you less cubes or less pressure, whatever you require.
Again, this is probably a obvious question, but as more air pressure hits that fan, does it require then more energy to keep it at a consistent rate? So that's when your energy consumption will go up. Is that how that works?
That's correct. Yes. So if we look back at the decline fan, when you're only using the pod's completely closed, you might only be using with a 250 kilowatt fan, you might only be using 90 kilowatts of power initially. Now, once you start pushing further, yes, you're going to have to open that pod up so more air is hitting the impeller. So it's going to be having to use more energy to push that airflow through. So I guess the huge benefit of this is you don't need, let's say you use a twin 110 fan system for your decline. You don't need 220 kilowatts off the bat. You're only using 90 kilowatts.
Right.
Guys,
so it's a huge energy saving over time, especially at the start of projects, of course.
Massive, especially if you're using a diesel genset, which a lot of people are initially on their declines.
Right. At the start of the projects, you mean?
Yeah, with diesel, 35 cents a kilowatt. That's a big difference between 90 kilowatts to 220 kilowatts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've helped a tier one company in Australia with their decline fan, and they've saved $350,000 in power over 16 months. So it's immense.
I would love to be the guy that made that choice to purchase that fan and go, hey, look what I did for you.
That's it. People don't tend to look at operational costs, and once they do, that's when it hits home, and they go, if we spend an extra 5% on our capital, we're going to save 50% on our wild
right. Yeah, and just really the opportunity to have that discussion so that they can see that, because it's easy to see an upfront cost and then lose what you're making on the back end.
That's right.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to just a technical thing as well. So the motor, now how is it adjusting? Sorry if you already answered this, but I'm kind of missed it. How does the motor, because now the motor has to ramp up to keep the fan at a consistent speed, right? So is it talking to the pod? Is that how that's working?
Essentially, I'm not a motor expert, and I'll preface it by saying that, but in the best way that I think of it is if I'm walking up a hill and I'm just going for a leisurely stroll, my body isn't usually using that much energy. It's just doing it, and that can revert back to the pod being closed. Now, once we open up that pod, right, and there's lots of air hitting that motor, use the analogy of walking up the hill and I've got a backpack on full of bricks, my body is going to be using a lot more energy.
Okay.
So from a technical point of view, it's just the motor has to pull a lot more energy to work a bit harder to keep that constant RPM.
So there's some technology there that is telling the motor that, okay, now you have to ramp up. Basically energy use. I'm not a motor expert either, so I was just interested in what that actual technology is, because it's probably quite interesting. And then I also saw a note when I was going through it's the anti-stall technology. Now I see that sounds good. I don't know if stalling is an issue with other fan systems or that, but I saw that note, so I want some clarification on what that was.
Yeah, so I guess from a safety point of view, the anti-stall chamber is just some amazing technology. Again, if your fan goes into a catastrophic fail, it's going to throw. It can snap these impellers off. It can throw the impellers through the casing, and it can cause some serious damage to equipment, but more importantly, people. So, with the anti-stall chamber, a stall will form on the end of a blade, and it's a little stall bubble. Now, with the anti-stall chamber, it sits half over the blade and half over back into the casing. So once that stall bubble starts to begin, it comes back up, it hits the anti-stall chamber, and it gets pushed. The bubble gets pushed back through into the airflow. So, that's pretty much it in, again, layman's terms. It forms and it doesn't give it a chance to grow bigger and go into catastrophic fail.
So when you say bubble, you're talking about air, like pressurized air pocket?
Yes, like a little stall bubble. Yeah, correct.
Right. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about was just the design. If I was to see this fan, is it like similar in weight, design? I'm guessing that one of those pictures behind you. It's pretty obvious which one is the fan. Up on the top, it's my top left, your top right, I guess. That for the same amount of pressure and all that sort of and energy use at its max, would that be the same size as a similar, like another model of fan, or would it be lighter or anything like that?
No, 100%. So it is roughly about the same weight, but we are significantly smaller. So we're probably only 75% of the length of a twin 110 system.
So footprint is smaller.
Footprint is a lot smaller, yeah, and a lot more modular as well. You can take ours apart, they take their vases off and bolt them back together, and it's all in modular form. So hanging isn't an issue. It is a bit of a question that we always get asked about hanging them, but it isn't an issue. If you've got the right equipment to hang other ventilation on site, you won't have an issue hanging any of these.
Are these fans part of the ESG discussion? Because a lot of course, I'm assuming if you're using less energy, especially over the life of a mine, less energy, power consumption. Like you said, if you're running a diesel engine, of course, now that's all dropping. Is that part of the discussion and the selling point that you have to deliver?
Yeah, I guess with the way that the world is going at the moment, and everyone wants to get to net zero emissions, and it's just another string to their bow. Being able to offer this and have significant power savings. Again, it's a no-brainer. If you want to try and do better for the environment, one of those biggest issues in the environmental side of things is power usage and diesel emissions. So being able to use less diesel, it's a no-brainer.
Is it when you go and talk, like you've been with the company 9 months now, so when you're talking to everybody's new to you, I would assume, right? Are you new to them? Is Minetek new to them? Is there still that job of, and is it different in Australia? I'm assuming it's quite different in Australia. Of course, a lot of people would know you. What is it like? Have you got a sense of what it's like in the North American markets, Canada, the US, and whatnot?
Yeah, it is relatively new. I mean, we've been doing air now for about 5 years. We've been doing fans for 40, but
right.
The mining fans about 5 years, and we understand that we're relatively new and we've probably got to build trust. But once they see our fans in actions or speak to other people who have got our fans on site, it all makes sense to them. So there is a lot of business development out there, especially for me being new to the mining industry. I don't have a whole lot of connections there. But in the ventilation side, you speak to a lot of, I don't know you did vent. And then we break it down for them. And again, they all come back to me and say the same thing. It is a no-brainer.
Yeah, do you remember the first, I don't know if you were with someone at first, but do you remember sort of the first conversation you had? I won't make you say who it is or anything like that. This is a mining world. There's a lot of NDAs happen. But do you remember some of the first, sort of the type of mine that, the first discussion you had? Someone who didn't have your system in there.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, the first conversation I had, it just would have been a disaster because it's such a technical product, and you think that
Yeah.
being in sales, you think you know more than what you know, and that
Yeah.
was the biggest turning curve, like learning curve for me, was understanding what I didn't know, and I didn't know what I didn't know, and I still don't know a lot of things, and I'm learning every day. But yeah, there was some bad phone calls there. I tell you what, not even some of the biggest mine sites and not knowing the names of them. It's just it was a yeah, it was a disaster at the start, but
Yeah, it's a very it's a tough industry. I mean, now I've been in it, for quite a few years. So if I go to an event or, I know quite a few people, but I can walk through a crowd and not talk to anybody and not recognize anybody, right? So it's one of those industries. Yeah, the more you know, the more you just go, oh no, there's
yeah.
just so much more to learn. What was I'm also curious, just shifting into a whole, what did you, those first few months, what did you sort of take away from the mine? Is there something that you learned about the industry? You went, okay, this is not how I expected it to be. Just even the way people communicated or the setups or having to go to site. What was that you pictured, and what was it like after you got your feet wet after a few months?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing was how many hurdles you have to jump through to get something into
Mm,
site. So
right.
from my point of view, I've got to engage with a lot of different stakeholders. You've got people on site, you've got people in head offices, you've got consultants, you've got the people that are actually doing the work for them. Who's doing the decline? Got to speak to them. So you could get all these things ticked off, and then one person in head office hasn't heard of Minetek before, and that just throws a
Yeah.
spinner in the works. So
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest challenges that I had to face early, especially coming from FMCG, where things are selling. Things just you can rock up to us. In my case, an agricultural store and say, "Hey, do you want to buy this?" And yep, no worries, and they buy it on the day. Where there's no
Right.
red tape in mining, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is a big thing, right? All those layers. How have you managed it? I mean, 9 months is different than 9 years, but you still, I mean, it's the job. So how do you sort of get through those hurdles? Do you rely on your team, sort of your own instincts, past experience? What are the tools you're using?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing that I've been doing is just getting out to sites and getting into the head offices and meeting everybody.
Mm,
Um, the last 9 months, I think I've traveled every single week. I've been on a plane around the country, around the world every single week, uh,
wow.
which it's been exhausting. I'm not going to lie, but it's been
Yeah.
immensely fun. Getting
Yeah.
out, meeting all these new people, completely different industry. It's been awesome. And Mindtech's really good with the support and anything that we need to help the customer, we'll do it. So if somebody called up tomorrow and said, "Hey, can you come out to Nevada and meet with us?" We'll be on the plane that afternoon.
Wow.
That is our
Is
promise
that
to the market.
That it must make a big difference, hey? Actually getting to talk, like you're talking about the people in that because talking to the people, stumbling all over my words here, talking to the people that are in an office, and maybe there's 3 or 4 people in the vicinity that sort of have some say in what happens. Um, I mean, I've seen situations where someone writes. This style of writing their emails is very abrupt, and then you meet the person, and it's like a completely different. It's like someone else is writing their emails.
Yep.
Or I've also seen people like they put emojis in their emails. And then smiley faces, all kinds of stuff. And then I meet them and they're such a serious person. It's like that email is there a chance to express themselves, you know? And it must just make a huge, especially when you have, like you're saying, these multiple layers, actually being on site and just getting a feel for who the people are on the other end.
That's right. And it's so important for us to get out to these sites and explain our product as well. If I just send through a proposal to somebody, they're not going to understand the pod system. They're not going to understand all the different things that go into that quote. So getting in front of them, being on site, explaining all the features and benefits to the
Hmm.
site, to the head office of what their OPEX savings are going to be is so important. You know, yeah, like I said earlier, we might be 5 or 10% more expensive, but it's a, it's a completely different product. And,
Right.
when we talk about the pod, you might not need two fans to do that job. You might just need the one Minetek fan. So from a
Right.
Minetek's
Yeah.
point of view, we probably aren't more expensive. But when people look at it on paper, it gets a bit jumbled and people, yeah, maybe don't quite understand. So going back to those site visits is so important to us. And I think the customer gets a lot of benefit out of them as well, because we're there to kind of bounce ideas off each other. If you're an engineer and you're the only engineer on site, you can't bounce ideas off anybody. So with us there, you might not end up buying a Minetek fan, but at least we've helped you come to get your solution.
Right. Yeah, there are a couple projects that either you know of or were involved with that sort of stand out as just sort of good case studies for, just the range of power, the setup, the delivery. Just a couple you could walk us through to sort of give us that real world scenario.
Yeah, so I guess one of our best projects that we've done, sorry, is in the goldfields at Agnew. That we're engaged to do their primary ventilation on site. They had some real issues with timing and not wanting to, I guess, shut down the mine for too long, because that's just going to be a huge loss in production. So we came up with a solution where we could get their old fans, their old primary fans, out of the ground and our new ones put in within 3.5 days, which is
Okay.
just unheard of. Usually
Yeah.
takes months to get these in the ground. I guess the main difference of us is we'll build all of our fans, like I said previously, in Prestons in New South Wales, and they're all modular. So we'll send them across the country, across the world in modular form, bolt them together or skid them down underground, and,
Mm,
and then put them together underground, which we don't build any physical parts of the fan on site. It's all built or ready to go. So we can just bring it in, bolt it on. And, in those 3.5 days versus a month of commissioning a fan, you might save, I couldn't even put a number on it. It'll be in the millions.
hmm
So that was a really good project. Again, just being versatile, being able to understand what the customer needs, what the customer wants, and yeah, being agile enough to make it happen.
I was actually curious, just before we get to the tail end. So, if obviously, Australian company, big market there. Now you mentioned the U.S. and Canada. You have boots on the ground there as well. Is the focus the same in all countries globally, or do you sort of have specific focuses based on the country that you're operating in?
Yeah, so obviously every country operates a little bit differently. It's all the same kind of processes and needs, but the product will probably just alter slightly. We found that in the American market, the secondary fans aren't quite as large. So we've
Mm,
actually come up with a solution for that. Again, going back to how agile and um, innovative Minetek is, we've come up with a solution where we're going to do some smaller secondary fans for that market. Um,
mm,
I can't give you the sizing off the top of my head right now, but they're going to be smaller than the 1.4 meter diameters that we usually run in Australia. They'll be smaller because generally the drives are smaller, so you don't have a whole lot. You don't have as much clearance as what you would in the Australian market, in the American market. So yeah, so we've kind of come up with a different solution for the
mm.
American market and in the secondary side of things. We've done some primary vent at a couple of sites in America, and they love it, and they've moved all of their um, Minetek fans over, all their ventilation on site to the Minetek offering.
And in both in primary or secondary though, is it all the same setup with the pod? No need for a VFD, like that, all that sort of stuff.
That's right, yeah, and the one that we've come up with for the American market is going to be even more modular. So you don't actually need to get the pod on some of these fans. If you just want the stock standard fan, we can do that. But if you want to have that vent on demand and the more control over your secondary fans, you have the option for the pod still. So we're going to have both offerings on the table for the Australian and American market. and obviously Canadian market as well. But yeah, that's going to be the offering over there.
What's before I let you go, what has been the biggest learning curve in this? I'm going back to this. I've had to switch careers a couple times. It's it's a very interesting thing to do, especially when you're going from. I mean, agriculture and mining are two pretty different spaces. What's been the biggest sort of either learning curve or just thing that you've learned about the industry since coming over to it?
Yeah, it's an amazing industry, that's for sure. But I guess the biggest learning curve I have is it's a slow moving industry as well, in the sense
Yeah,
to get things into a mine site, you might start planning 18 months out.
yeah,
Um, so that was probably the biggest learning curve for me personally, from a sales background anyway. Um,
right,
but at the end of the day, people just want a product that's going to have longevity and suit their needs. They don't want anything they want a dump truck. They don't want a Lamborghini. They want something that's going to suit their needs, make their lives easier. And yeah, again, come up with a solution for their site. So yeah, I guess that's the biggest learning curve for me, is people just want something that's going to help them.
what is the main question you get? And I'm sure you get lots, but is there, or maybe a couple, are there a couple consistent questions you get? Maybe not even that initial conversation. I'm talking about when, you're on site, you're meeting with people and they've got, there's a couple primary questions. For example, our big one is always, do we get to see the questions before the interview? Pretty much everybody asks that question to us before we start. Is there a couple that you just know are coming when people are starting that discussion with you or engaging in the discussion?
Yeah, it's always, what is the pod? Explain the pod.
Mm.
Do we need to get the pod?
Do we
And
need to get the pod?
do we need to get? And I always say, yes, you need to get the pod.
Yeah.
You don't honestly though, with the secondary market, it's so it's just something that's never been done before, and the
Mm.
big tier one companies that we've um got our secondaries in with the pod into their operations, have just it's paid dividends. From we can look at it from an OPEX point of view as well. It saves them hundreds of thousands of dollars, but from a employee worker point of view as well, it's less work, because if it's all automated and it's opening and closing, you don't need to go down to your starter and turn your secondary fan off.
Right.
You can run the SCADA back to your laptop and control it from your laptop if you really want to. So from a working point of view, again, I've been saying this the whole time, but it is a no-brainer.
Yeah. Is it, what is just, this will be the last question, but I think it's an important one, is what should people expect? So would you be first contact? Let's say someone watches this, they reach out either through your contact. We'll put your LinkedIn link right in the description of the video so people could reach out directly to you. But once that discussion starts, everything, they go through the process and go, yeah, this is the right fit. What is sort of the expectation afterwards? Engineers coming on site, do they provide data? Just sort of a little bit of the workflow of actually when they say that, yes, we want the fan, and the fan actually gets turned on.
Yeah. So I guess initially, myself or the divisional manager, Jeremy Sutherland, would come out to site straight away. I think that's, like I said, I've already said this before, it's so important to get out there, because you can get everybody in the same room. You can read each other's body language. You can kind of understand what everyone wants. And then we can leave that meeting with a complete understanding of what their requirements are. From there, I can sit down with our project management team, with our engineering team, whoever I need to sit down to come up with a perfect solution for that mine site. And then again, I would probably fly back over to that site, sit down with them again, and go through that proposal in detail. From there, if that's where they wanted to go, we would hand that over. I would still be very much involved in the project, but we would hand that over to the project management team, who from there will oversee the whole production, the whole install, everything. And then from there, it'll get handed over to the after sales care division, who will come out and do your servicing and commissioning works and whatever you need. But I guess the greatest thing about Minetek is you can give me a call, you can give one of the directors a call, you can call absolutely anybody. We'll always pick up pick up the phone. It's not, oh, you're my customer, no one else can talk to you. You know, everyone's gonna speak to you at some point, and you're gonna have assistance on any queries that you might have instantly. I can't undervalue having full access to the engineers. You know, it's you can have their card straight away and get their phone number and email, and you can harass them as much as you like until you get the answer that you want. It's just awesome. You know, in other businesses that I've worked in, I guess they kind of try and keep it very separate, I guess. And if you're
Yeah,
talking to
yeah, for
sales, you're
sure.
talking to sales, or if and you can maybe only have a bit of email correspondence with the project teams or the engineering teams. This
Yeah.
is, you have direct line of sight directly to whoever you need to speak to make your life easier.
Yeah, it's in kind of getting to know your team, which I didn't, only spend only the last couple weeks. I've been getting to know our team has been talking to you as we prepare the interview, but for myself personally, there's a certain energy. Certain companies have a very engaged. They care about what they're talking about. There's been good communication with everybody, so I assume that would be a taste of what clients who are paying you to do it. It would only be better for them. So, no, it's very exciting. I'm glad. I think we're doing a third episode with you. I don't know, Ben. Are you heading over to Mine Expo or coming out to any of those North American events over the next few months?
It wasn't on my radar at the moment, but I'd love to. If people wanted to meet me there, or yeah, I'm more than happy to. I think these things are great to get out there and network and
Yeah.
see people face to face, and again, get an understanding what their biggest pain points are, I guess, and we can come back with a solution for them. I think everyone wins.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there in person at CIM and Mine Expo. So if someone does rope you into coming out there, we'll get a chance to meet in person. It'd be great. So, but thank you very much for doing this interview. You're 9 months in, so you might be you might have the shortest period of time with a company for someone who's done an interview. You might have a new record.
It goes back to mindset. You know, they empower people. You know,
Yeah.
they might feel like you're throwing you in the deep end, but you're going to learn quicker, and they empower you to make decisions and do things and get out there and just
Yeah.
make it happen. So
Well, and it shows confidence in a product too. That goes, yeah, you can be with us for 9 months and talk about this product because it's the best. So that it's a giveaway right there. Ben, thank you very much for your time. I hope we do it again.
Thanks, appreciate it.
And thank you everybody for watching. Like I mentioned, you can connect with Ben right on his LinkedIn. We'll put it right in the description below. And of course, they've got a YouTube. Minetek has a YouTube page, a LinkedIn page, of course, their website at minetek.com, and then the different divisions within that. So go check that out. Let them know you saw the show if you're getting it from us. And we will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.